This is Signature Evening, and on Signature Business, we'll be looking at another point of conversation. In Nigeria, as a country, is currently facing one of its worst economic crises in probably a generation. And it has long been acknowledged by policymakers, by academia, and other stakeholders that Nigeria needs diversification of its production base to grow in line with its potential to become a major player in the world economy by virtue of its natural and human resource endowment. The last part of the sentence is captured from the Government of Nigeria's Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, ERGP. It continues. However, this potential has to a large extent remained untapped over the years. The need for diversification is especially notable for exports. The international demand for Nigeria's main export, crude oil, has historically been sufficient to drive growth in Nigeria. The other side of the coin is, of course, that a very large dependence on crude oil exports makes Nigeria extremely vulnerable to downward changes in international oil prices, which is beyond control of Nigerian policy makers. Hence, diversification is an integral part of the ERGP. The question is how to achieve diversification. But we'll be looking at the Nigeria's dwindling economy and the way forward with the Director, Export Chamber of International Trade and Investment, Tony Odukwe. Good evening, Tony. Thanks for joining us.
Good to see you again.
Good evening, Tony.
Good evening.
Right away, it's no longer news that we are faced with what are worst, probably economic dwindling, downturn in decades.
Yeah.
That has led to anger, that has led to frustration, that has led to so much hardship in the land. But I think that first of all, before we begin to address some of the things that are happening and the way forward, it will be pertinent to check, find out, speak to ourselves why Nigeria is struggling with the economic situation.
Well, there are a couple of reasons why that is happening. But of course, I'd like to talk about the Nigerian politician. That would be my principal target right now, because really, if anything is going wrong in a home, you actually should ask the father of the home or hold the father responsible. So basically, Nigeria is where it is today because we have irresponsible politicians who are often incompetent and, again, have no clues as to how to move the economy forward, right? I have said it a million times that running a nation is not rocket science. It's really not that difficult to get the economy moving. And so if they're not really able to move the economy, it tells me that there is a high level incompetence going on, really, because like I said, it doesn't take so much, it doesn't take rocket science to get this economy moving. There are a few things that you have to tweak, and then you'll see, you place the economy on, how do you call it, autopilot. It begins to fly on its own. For example, every state in Nigeria receives, their FAC allocations on a monthly basis, right? And these run in the billions of Naira. So are you trying to tell me that on a state-to-state basis that you're not able to use your FAC, activate it in such a way that you begin to generate income for the state and create employment for the people? If you're telling me that you're struggling and you don't know how to do that, it speaks to the incompetence that I'm talking about. I'm not talking to any state particularly, but this is, the general problem that we find going on in Nigeria today. Now, on the federal level, it's basically the same thing. We're depending on, our economy is almost like a mono economy. Nigeria is, for me, the second most blessed economy globally. I always say that number one is Congo DRC. There's no country anywhere on the map that is as blessed as Congo DRC, in terms of natural resources. And then after Congo DRC, there is no other country that I can, look to other than Nigeria. And so how are we not able to open up these sectors and actually create economic growth for the economy where we're able to create employment and actually grow our GDP, But our politicians are not able to do that. And so that's why I keep saying they're just incompetent. well, it's either they're incompetent or they're just too wicked to care about the citizens of the country, really. Because trust me, what you simply need to do is open up some of these sectors, especially in the mining sector, right? A place like Abakaliki has all sorts of solid minerals, you know. Abakaliki has, for example, iron, how do you call it, lead ore. That a container, a truckload of lead ore could be selling in the international market for $45,000 or more, right? And so why should a state like that be poor? The same thing goes to Enugu. Enugu has a lot of natural resources that you can activate, bring in people, open up bids, you know, for how do you call it, exploration licenses. And then you can find both local and international investors coming in to scramble for these licenses. And that way you generate a lot of income for the state. So there's a lot of things that can be done actually. But I want to stop there right now. And
no, it is basically the leaders and nothing else. So
not just that it's the leaders. I said primarily I would like to dwell on the leaders because they are the ones that are not getting it right. They are the policymakers, right? And so there's nobody else to blame but the leaders because they are the ones making the policies that actually govern the economy, right? There are a lot of other problems that we have that you can actually bring down to, how do you call it, to the private sector. We in the private sector, there are certain things that we're not getting right as well. People believe in somebody opens a restaurant and is doing very well, then everybody wants to start a restaurant business. Okay, Mr. A owns a boutique and he's doing very well. He has a Jeep sitting in front of the boutique that everybody wants it to run. We have to be more creative, you know, in the way we do our business. And there are a lot of things that we can do. Now, about 12 months ago or more, a couple of companies, more than 12 months actually, a couple of international companies, you know, stood up and left Nigeria. What the media would tell you is that, oh, this company's left. And they would paint the picture like these companies failed or they went out of business. It's not really the case. What it is that Nigeria became very difficult, you know, to do business in. And so what did they do? They decided to close their operations here and export it to somewhere else where the economies are working better, right? But the idea we get is that, oh, this company's folded, oh, they went out of business. They didn't go out of business. They just moved somewhere where it's easy to do business. And so this is what the private sector should be doing. What is Nigeria's gross national income today? It's very poor. We used to judge economies that are doing well with the GDP, the gross domestic product, right? And that is a sum total of everything a country produces in a fiscal year, right? And you look at it and you say, okay, this country is doing well. But lately, a lot of countries are beginning to use the GNI, which is the gross national income, to judge how well an economy is doing and their citizens as well, right? So you find out that Nigeria's gross national income is somewhere down there at the bottom of the totem pole. So that means that income has become very stagnant for so many years. So the Nigerian worker isn't earning enough. Inflation is off the roof. Food inflation is almost at 40%, right? So working families, practically, the middle class has been eradicated in Nigeria. And so the middle class, what we used to call the middle class families, and the middle class families anymore, they are poor. A lot of them can't buy a loaf of bread. So there's something I call the luxury list. A lot of items that we used to purchase in the Nigerian market have gone into the luxury list. Gas is one of them. Many Nigerian families can't afford to buy 12.5 cylinder of cooking gas. Many Nigerian families can't afford to, you know, pay 1,500 naira for a loaf of bread, right? Even charcoal. When gas got so expensive, people moved to charcoal. Many Nigerian families that you used to call middle class can't afford to sustain charcoal for a month. Right? So many of them are looking for alternatives and it's become totally difficult, right? So what I'm trying to say in essence is that the politician has killed this economy, but you in the private sector can do what some of these international companies did, export your business. Because the gross national income in Nigeria is very bad, the Nigerian customer is the most unfortunate customer to have for any business right now. So you can't depend on them to spend, because if they're not spending, businesses are not growing. If businesses are not growing, they're not paying taxes. If they're not paying taxes, government is not generating IGR, right? So what you can do in the private sector is to take your business in this dying economy, relocate it to a booming economy somewhere and generate forex.
And that's for Nigerians, right?
For Nigerians in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of what you just said. That's in no way going to help the economy, generally speaking.
How is it not going to help? Let me tell you how.
If you move out,
save the business.
Are you talking about export?
No, save the business and then you save the country. Save the businessman, then you save the country. You're Nigerian to begin with. You can't mortgage your country with any other country. You will always be Nigerian. So that means you will always remit money. Okay, remittances from overseas is at 24.4 billion or thereabout. That means money being sent by Nigerians that live overseas. It's a major contributor to the Nigerian economy.
Oh, really?
It's not a joke. So we can do the Chinese model, which means the Chinese are supporting their businessmen to go overseas and set up businesses and repatriate their profits to their country.
So this is actually a solution.
It's a model that works. It's a very feasible model. Yes.
We'll get on to that at the point where we'll be looking at the way forward. But for now, let's look at some of the indices. Now, each government that comes on board, each administration comes up with one policy, economic policy or the other. We have seen SAP, the likes in the past, up until the Hope Agenda and all of those.
We had Vision 2020.
We had Vision 2020. I didn't know I was going to be here by 2020.
Food for all in the year 2020. You know.
What actually went wrong? We had policies, and the intent was to make the economy work. And I'm not sure there was a success.
You know how it is with me. Irresponsible leadership. That is what it is. Now, these leaders were forecasting the future, but we're not actually implementing practical steps to achieve that great future, right? Leaders like the general, the former leader, military leader of Gowon, right, said in 1977 during the Festac celebrations that Nigeria's problem is not a lack of money, but how to spend the money.
Was he still there as the head of state?
Yes, he was the one that organized Festac 77. I think it was him. I think he was one. So he said at that time that Nigeria's problem is not money, but how to spend it. So you see that kind of mindset, a mindset of spendamania, right? You remember the early 80s of we talked about. You use the term spendamania a lot, right? Which refers to politicians spending and spending and spending, right? So the idea was, okay, we're making a lot of income, just spend it. You forget that you're supposed to actually save money for the future. Many serious-minded countries actually save their excesses. When they make excess profit, they put them in how do you call this account? In the foreign reserves, right? For future generations to come. Some of these serious-minded countries actually take their foreign reserves or their excesses and put it in an account where they're able to lend it to countries that are actually looking to borrow these monies and pay a high interest on these loans. So that means that even though that money is an excess that you don't need right now, but you can put it to work and ensure that it continues to generate income for generations to come. But no, that's not the thing for the Nigerian politician. They want to spend it. Once there's free money somewhere, whether it's made from Nigerian resources or borrowed, they want to buy cars. They want to buy a 162 million Naira car. What do you need that for? Right? You want to buy a yacht. You want to buy things that are not needful. And you're not thinking about generations to come. It's sad that what my generation is suffering today is the bad decisions of the generations of my father and the generation before theirs, right? And so if we do not say today, the buck stops right here, my children are going to suffer what I'm suffering today because of the irresponsibility of the generation before me and my generation. So it is time that my generation says it has to stop here. If we want to build a great future for our children, this rascality and irresponsibility of politicians has to stop right now and right here, because there are things that we can do with all the money. How can Nigeria have the second best crude oil in the world, and then you have Nigerians living at less than $2 a day? That is immoral. That is criminal. That is wrong. Bonny Light is the second best crude oil in the world, in high demand. We've had a lot of high seasons. During the first Gulf War, we had our high season. During the second Gulf War, we had another high season. In recent years, we've had a number of high seasons where crude oil was sold for over $100 a barrel. What happened to those excesses? What happened to those excesses? It's simply the irresponsibility and rascality of our politicians.
So how would you say the dependence of Nigerian oil be a huge contributor to the economic challenges we're facing now?
It is. You have to diversify your economy, right? Nigeria has the privilege, or Nigeria should have the ability to diversify, because we have things to diversify to, right? We're not your regular Malawi or some of these small nations that have nothing. Nigeria has a lot. You know, I could give you over 150 natural resources that we can diversify to right now. I talked about tin ore, we have iron ore, we have cobalt, we have titanium, we have, just name it. We have some of the most volatile, financially volatile, financially powerful raw materials, right? Every phone you use today requires an earth mineral, you know, to produce, to power it, right? There are a few countries that have those. Nigeria is one of them. Congo DRC is another one, right? And you ask yourself, why is Congo DRC fighting a war the last 30 years? I know why. A lot of people don't know why. And you ask yourself, okay, why is Boko Haram existent in Nigeria? Why all the killings? You don't know why. Nigerians are not even asking the right questions, right? And I'm going to tell you simply that the reason this is happening is because the West is not looking forward to an Africa that is independent, an Africa that is successful, an Africa that is industrialized. It is not in the best interest of the UK, America, and a lot of France and a lot of these Western countries to have a Nigeria that is actually fully industrialized, that is able to provide jobs for its people, provide income for its people, and actually rank as one of the most successful economies in the world. The reason is the day Nigeria gets it right, Africa gets it right. When Africa gets it right, what you're going to have is an Africa that does not depend on foreign aid, but an Africa that decides to take its raw materials and turn them into finished products and determine what prices this product will sell in the international market. And when that happens, the West will be in trouble.
So what role exactly can diversification play in stabilizing the economy now?
A lot. When you diversify, you move away from just oil. Let's say we move into agriculture. What happened during Goodluck Jonathan's regime, I think around 2012? Nigeria had a negative growth in a particular year because between 2007 and 2012, there was a shaking in the crude oil market, right? There was a credit crunch in 2007 that we didn't really get over until about 2012. So many economies globally were suffering. Nigeria happened to suffer as well. But by 2012, we had started to recover, but not fully. Around 2012, Nigeria was one of the fastest growing economies in the world. But we had a negative growth, I believe it was in 2012. But because Goodluck Jonathan's regime decided to diversify into agriculture, we had great productivity in 2012. So the losses we had in crude oil sales, we made up for in agriculture. And so it was a profitable year for us as well because we were able to diversify into agriculture. Food, you can't go wrong with food. Everybody has to eat. So if you want to become a millionaire in Nigeria today, farm yam. It's that simple. You can become a multi-millionaire in 1 year just farming yam. So yam is a global multi-billion-dollar industry. We can, not just yam, I mean a whole lot of other products we have. So you can diversify into agriculture and make, trillions of dollars just farming. But you can do one that is even better. Don't just farm it, process it as well. So that means you take from the farmer, because there are three sectors of agriculture. You have production, which has to do with livestock and crop production and all of that. Then you have a middle ground, which is the processing. We've had the discussion a number of times in the past. You have the processing, and then you have the business, side of agriculture, right? So you can create trillions of dollars and create a lot of jobs between this value chain, this value chain. You take from the farmers, bring it to the middle sector, which is processing. They process it into beverages, all kinds of products, finished products, right? Now, determine at what rate it's going to sell locally and in the international market, and then move it to export. So when we move it to export, that is when we generate forex. A country that does this model can never go wrong. But our politicians don't care about agriculture. They don't care about this model that is functional because they want something that gives them quick money that they can steal, really fast. So implement this model any day, anytime. You'll create millions of jobs.
That's for sustainable economic growth.
Yes, one of the ways. So I'm just telling you one of the ways you can diversify the economy. Do an agriculture, this value chain of agriculture, activate it, and you'll make millions of money, and create jobs for your people. The other thing is open up all of these natural resources we have. Call for an international bid, right? remember, when Obasanjo came in, we didn't have GSM. We didn't have GSM technology.
When he came in as
president, the second time he became a democratically elected president, right? We didn't have GSM. So he took the bull by the horn and did something that no other leader had done prior to him, right? So he called for a bid. And so a number of companies came and, threw in their bid for the GSM license. Some European countries thought, oh, Nigeria, oh, no, we don't need it. We don't need the license from Nigeria. It's never going to work. And then MTN came in, right? MTN paid heavily for that GSM license, but they made so much money from that. But then it had a multiplier effect on the Nigerian economy, right? It created a lot of jobs directly and indirectly. People were selling recharge cards by the street and feeding their families. People were selling phones. People were importing phones and feeding their families. MTN was making a lot of money. MTN made so much money that in a particular year, they were able to move out $5 million or $5 trillion from the Nigerian economy in a particular year, right? And that was because a leader decided to diversify, from the regular systems of telecommunications that we had to a new technology that had great potential. So do the same with, with our natural resources. Call for bids from all around the world. The Japanese can come and bid, Americans can come and bid, to come and explore the different resources that we have, natural resources, earth minerals that we have, right? When they come in, they pay you heavily for the licenses. But what happens is that whatever it is that they mine, they're able to sell, and they're still able to pay taxes. So for you, it's a win-win, right? So diversifying the economy is not rocket science. It's not difficult. It is doable, and it's something that we must do as a matter of urgency if we must save this economy.
Now, when you were saying, letting us in on some of the reasons why we're still struggling economically, and you said it's basically the kind of leadership we have.
Yeah.
I want to believe that corruption is one. It's not just about their ineptitude, but that we had corrupt persons in the leadership position. But I am thinking again that there is an external force to all of this.
Beautiful.
So can we go down?
Beautiful. I'm glad you brought. I was going to talk about that and I forgot, but it's good that you brought it up. Now, I was saying that. It's not in the interest of the West to have an Africa that works, right? The reason is this. The West does not have as much natural resources as we do in Africa. Africa is the last frontier. Africa has, just name it, all the right natural resources that any region needs to prosper, right? Look at, for example, Burkina Faso. 4 years ago, Burkina Faso had a stooge of the West as a leader, right? And this leader had been in power for almost 30 years or more. Burkina Faso had a very incorruptible military president many years ago, more than 30 years ago, Thomas Sankara, right? Thomas Sankara was a young military soldier that came in and took over power and kicked out, the leaders of Burkina Faso at the time. The name was Upper Volta. The name of this country was Upper Volta. Follow my lead. I'm trying to tell you a story here. Okay. So Upper Volta was the name, and he didn't like it. So he came in and changed the name from Upper Volta, I believe it was Upper Volta, to Burkina Faso, or people that cannot be corrupted, right? So this young man started doing great things in Burkina Faso, investing in agriculture, cut down on government spending, decided to drive just one little car. Right. At first, he said that all ministries, 2 ministries to 1 car, but eventually found that it wasn't feasible. So he decided to give every minister a car, right? But not a very flamboyant car. So he started doing great things in Burkina Faso. He kicked out the imperialist France from Burkina Faso. And then France decided to get at him, just like they're trying to do to Traoré right now. Traoré in 2 years has had 20 attempts on his life, because he's doing all the right things, and France doesn't want him there. So the West is colluding to eliminate him, just like they did Thomas Sankara. So who did they use to kill Thomas Sankara? His best friend. The same person he went into the army with at the same time. The same person he ate on his mother's table with every day was the one that France used to kill him. And this man became the leader of Burkina Faso for almost 35 years until they kicked him out recently. I believe I'm not wrong. Right? So what happened? Ibrahim Traoré took over. Now I'll give you one example of the things that he's doing right. Before he became the leader, Burkina Faso is blessed with some of the best quality uranium. France was buying Burkina Faso's uranium at 80 cents a kilo. But the international going rate is 200 euros a kilo. So imagine how France is able to power its country at almost no cost, exploiting a little African country that is actually struggling. And so they were buying a kilo of uranium for 80 cents when the international going rate is 200 euros. So what did Thomas Sankara Traore do? He kicked him out and decided to start selling at the going rate of 200 euros. And so in 1 year, Burkina Faso became one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And today he's able to build industries for his people. Today he's, breaking records, becoming the biggest producer of onions and a whole lot of other stuff he's doing with all that money generated from these natural resources. So if Nigeria were serious, we can bank on our natural resources without corruption, with fair play, with equity, with sincerity. If our leaders truly wanted to make Nigeria one of the greatest countries in the world, what Ibrahim Traore is doing today is what our leaders need to be doing. Invest in our natural resources, bank on our natural resources, bring in people who can, explore them. Like Dangote is doing. Dangote has set up a model that is functional, and he has proven that this is doable. But what are they doing? They're trying to stifle him to make sure that he doesn't succeed. So we need to encourage more Dangotes, whether they're locals or they're foreigners, to come into Nigeria, invest, in industries, invest in agriculture, invest in mineral exploration, so that we can generate a lot of income that actually grows the Nigerian economy. I don't know if that answered your question.
You did, yes. Okay, let's look at the Naira itself, the value of the Naira now. And how can Nigeria tackle inflation and as well stabilize the Naira? It's
quite simple. It's really quite simple. That's why I said it's either these politicians are illiterate, or they're just too wicked to actually want to do the right things. It's really simple. To stabilize the economy, you need to export. Why is the economy in shambles? Let me tell you the simple reason our economy is in a bad place. We're a consumerist nation. We're consuming more than we're exporting. And so because we're consuming a lot, and there's this craze of, I make this analogy all the time, and I'm going to do it in this studio as well. Look at everybody in this studio right now. All of you are contributing to the problems of Nigeria's economy because you want to wear Western. Yes. You want to wear Western.
Absolutely.
So you see that if you look at yourself, I'm not trying to be mean, but trying to make a very solid point here. If you look at yourself from head to toe, you find out that there's a white man living in Asia or in Europe who will make money from you till the day he dies without necessarily coming to Africa. But as long as your taste is Western, as long as your fashion taste, your food choices are Western, there's a white man somewhere sitting down who will continue to make money from Africa until the day he dies, and his generation after him. So our taste for fashion is feeding a lot of white economies, right? All we simply need to do is change our taste. Decide that instead of mayonnaise, that I'm going to use something local, to eat my food. Decide that instead of wearing a suit, I'm going to wear a made in Nigerian, jumper, whatever you call it. Decide that instead of wearing a Gucci from France or from the West, and I'm going to wear made in Aba. If we do that, if we consume local, if we consume made in Nigeria, what it does for us is that it keeps our money within the economy, circulating within the economy, making more people rich, right? If we can simply do that, the death of the Naira will go away and the Naira will begin to grow, right? There is a high demand for the US dollar. There is a high demand for the euro. Why is there that high demand? Because we all want to eat foreign, we want to wear foreign. And so as long as we continue to want to consume foreign goods, we will go to our main market. We will take our monies made in Nigeria and we will give these monies to traders who I call agents of the West, indirect agents of the West. They themselves don't even know that they are agents of destruction. Because what they do is that they're collation centers for China, Cambodia, France, UK. They're collation centers. They just collect your Naira and give you foreign-made goods. They take that Naira to the black market, to their bookie on the street, and give him that Naira, and he collects thousands of dollars in exchange. And he takes all that money and he ships it overseas to go acquire those commodities that you're asking him to sell you. And so that is how we drain our economy, and the Naira will never recover. But if we decide that enough is enough from today, all of us collectively as Nigerians, that we will prefer made in Nigerian commodities, made in Nigerian food, made in Nigerian fashion. If we will do that single act, trust me, in 1 year, the Naira will grow so much that it becomes one of the best currencies in the world. How do I know that? Russia. A couple of years, 2 years ago, the West colluded against Russia and said, okay, don't buy crude oil from Russia. Don't buy gas from Russia. What did Russia do? Russia said, oh, you guys want to play games with me. And Russia said, okay, for those of you who cannot do without Russian gas, no more dollars. We don't collect dollars no more. We don't collect euros no more. If you want to deal with, and that is almost all of Europe, they couldn't do without Russia's gas. So they still had to go and buy from Russia. So Russia says, we're not collecting euros, we're not collecting dollars anymore. Buy in Russian ruble. Before this, Russian ruble was one of the worst performing currencies in the world. But when Russia decided that one single policy made that all the trade that we're going to do between Russia and every other country in the world has to be done with the local Russian currency, the ruble. So what that did was all of these countries started scrambling for the ruble. Where can we get ruble to go buy gas from Russia? So that currency came into demand. And that demand alone gave it its value. And it became one of the best performing currencies in the world. So Nigeria can simply do the same. That every country that wants to do business with Nigeria from now going forward, bring us Naira. We don't need euros, we don't need dollars, we don't need your yuan, bring us Naira. What it will simply do is that these businesses in these other countries that want to buy our Bonny Light or a different crude oil will have to approach our central bank. The banks in their countries will have to approach our central bank to sell them the Naira in large quantities, right? So Naira will all of a sudden get into demand. That demand on its own gives it its first line of protection and value. And so they will buy the Naira in their countries and bring it here to come deal with us. Just that demand alone will make the value of the Naira go up. And of course, when we industrialize, when every governor decides that I'm going to take my FAC and every month I'm going to open two major industries from my FAC, it's a simple model that works. I'm going to open up, for example, in Enugu State, we all eat beverages, we all take beverages, you know, all the chocolate beverages, all the butter, all the mayonnaise, just name it. All of the breakfast things that we know that people consume this. That's why some of these distributors are wealthy. These Igbo distributors, they are wealthy because people are consuming. So, but the problem is, on a national scale, we are taking our money and shipping it overseas. But on a local scale, we are shipping the income of Enugu State citizens to Lagos. Because you have a conglomeration of industries in Lagos, right? All of the best industries are in Lagos. All of the biggest industries are in Lagos. So they're manufacturing heavy. But they're using the Igbo trader as a distribution chain to distribute this all over Nigeria. And that is why Lagos will continue to be the greatest state, the most successful in Nigeria. Because every other state ships their money to Lagos. So the governor Peter Mbeka can decide that we won't do that anymore. Now, Enugu people, you people like tea, where I'm going to give you a tea factory. I'm going to use the FAC money to give you 1 or 2 tea factories in Enugu, top-notch tea factories, right? Okay, you guys like to eat cornflakes, right? I'm going to give you an industry that manufactures cornflakes in Enugu. Every month, do at least 2 major industries that manufacture the things that Enugu people love to consume. What that will do for us is that we will stop shipping our money to Lagos. We'll start buying from manufacturers in Enugu. So the money stays in Enugu and develops Enugu. You're going to say, what are they going to do with the excesses? Now, there is a 350 million market between West Africa and Central Africa that you can serve from Enugu. Pay attention. There is Malabo. The plastics that are used in Malabo the last 40, 50 years comes from Aba. Malabo, Equatorial Guinea. All the buckets, the basins, the dustpans, the sweepers that they use in Malabo come from Aba. The last 50 years, I'm telling you. Go to Cameroon. All the major distributors of the FMCGs, fast consumable moving goods, however you call that, are Nigerians, Igbos. So those markets are an extension of the Nigerian economy if we play our cards right. So what you're going to do is set up these industries. In 1 to 2 years, you will have enough industries manufacturing these goods that Enugu people consume. But other people from the southeast and south are going to discover, oh, it becomes more economically feasible for us to go to Enugu and buy than to go all the way to Lagos. They'll start coming to Enugu to go and buy top-notch products. And so Enugu will become a hub, a trade hub, right? So what are we going to do? Citizens of Enugu will cash right into that by exporting to Malabo, exporting to Cameroon, exporting to all of these markets around us right here. So these are simple models that we can actually implement, and you'll see both the national and local economies actually boom.
Okay, I was going to ask you if there's a correlation between economic situation and security situation. But in the light of this whole situation, do you think that sorting out our security issues, because we're also experiencing security crisis in Nigeria, do you think that sorting it out will also help kick the economic situation of Nigeria?
Absolutely. You need foreign direct investment, what we call in economics FDI. If I was a foreign investor, I wouldn't go to a place where I know that my life will be at jeopardy.
And that your investment may sink.
That's right. So if I wanted to go to a place to go and invest, the number of indices that I have to look at, I have to look at this gross national income that I talked about. I have to look at the GDP. I have to look at the HDI, Human Development Index. I have to look at security. I have to look at ease of doing business. So there are a number of indices foreign investors look at, right? If you're ranking low on any of these indices, you become less attractive for foreign investors. But security is absolutely very important. Some investors will look away from the HDI and a whole lot of other stuff like power, you know, and come anyways because, of course, they know that some of these, the absence of some of these indices will actually give them more profit and less competition. So they may come anyway. But when they know that if they come and invest here, that there's a high chance they're going to be kidnapped and killed, they wouldn't come at all, right? So it's absolutely important for FDA that you're safe, your country is safe, your region is safe, that you have good police network and that you're actually doing proper policing. It's absolutely very important. It's also very important for local citizens to know that I can travel from here to, in the last 2, 3, 4 years, I haven't gone anywhere. I haven't gone anywhere by road. If I can't afford to fly, forget about that trip. I have a very important meeting in Abuja. I haven't gone yet because the cost of flights are so expensive. But that important meeting is not as important as my life. And so I'm not going anywhere. And so the business that I could have done in Abuja, that would have given me some money that I would need to spend in Enugu to help grow the Enugu economy, is sitting still in Abuja because I can't get there, right? So security is totally very important to economic growth. It is tantamount, it is paramount. You can't play with it, right? But then the other thing is, well, I'm going to tell you something that's controversial, and I'm going to say it anyways.
Go ahead.
Bill Gates is not far-fetched from the insecurity that you find around the world. Bill Gates is not far-fetched from the headsmen and Boko Haram. France is not removed from the insecurity that you see. Now,
are you saying that he's benefiting directly?
Yes. Bill Gates is decimating the agricultural sector all over the world, not just in Africa. In India, in Europe, you know, they are paying farmers in Europe to take their harvest and let it sit in the field and rot. And then they will pay them the full value. But they don't want them to take those goods to the market or plug them into the normal supply chain and actually distribute them all over Europe. They want your tomatoes to rot. They want your potatoes to rot because they have vested interest. They're looking to control the world, and whoever feeds you controls you. Now, the other thing is that he's also looking to destroy the livestock industry because Bill Gates has invested in a technology where they actually produce meat in a lab. Lab-produced meat. Bill Gates is one of the major investors in that technology. So it's not in his best interest for you to continue to farm cattle. If you continue to farm cattle, he won't be able to recoup his investment, right? And so he's telling you that the cattle around the world are contributing to the depletion of the ozone layer. That's dumb. You can't tell us that. You can't tell us that cow poop is producing methane, and methane is the methane produced by these animals are destroying the ozone layer and causing global warming. That's crazy. And some people at WHO are colluding with him to do this. Ask yourself, why has Trump pulled away from WHO? Why has Kenya decided they're pulling away from WHO? right? So it is by design that Boko Haram is in the north destroying lives. And yet there are Westerners living in the north making a lot of money mining our natural resources. In Zamfara, mining is going on, and yet Boko Haram, they say it's not safe. In Borno, mining is going on, and yet it's not safe. Behind the enemy lines, there are people constantly mining our solid minerals. And so somebody is sponsoring these terrorists to make sure that there is insecurity in these areas where they have solid minerals that are very financially, viable. Now, why are they destroying farms as well? It's the same thing. They want to make sure that world food production is decimated so that they can achieve their purpose. I know what I'm saying. It's controversial.
It's quite
a lot
controversial.
of people don't know what I'm saying.
And I hope you own up to.
But of course,
large accusation.
of course, it's what's happening. We know it's what's happening.
Okay.
So basically that is what's going on. But we need leaders who can stand up to this, Western imperialists. Leaders like Thomas Sankara is what we're looking forward to, who can stand up to these imperialists. Somebody like Magufuli of Tanzania was one of those people, and he was eliminated, right? And so they don't want leaders who stand up for their people. They'll find ways to actually eliminate them. But these are some of the problems that we're facing locally. So finally, I want to say this before I finish on this subject. Ask yourself why Congo DRC has been in a war the last 40 years. Ask yourself why. Ask yourself why the war in Congo DRC will never end. Ask yourself why Ebola, that has a patent that is registered under the US government, has ravaged Congo DRC the last 15 to 20 years. And nobody wants to help them. Ask yourself why. Because as long as Congo DRC is unstable, flights will continue to leave every night, shipping out natural resources mined in Congo DRC. That is the problem of Africa. Indirect rule. Africa is not free. Nigeria is not free. Not a single country in Africa today is free from the colonizers' wicked paws.
All right, Tony, back to foreign direct investment. Apart from what you just mentioned, the security issue, which is driving them out in droves.
Yes.
Are there other things that are making it impossible or difficult for investors to think Nigeria?
I talked about the ease of doing business. Nigeria is ranking very low on the ease of doing business. Fortunately, I've traveled around the world, lived outside as well. I can walk into a government office in Portugal right now and register my business in less than 24 hours and get all the papers. They call it impresa no hora. What it means is a company in 1 hour. Impresa no hora is I speak Portuguese. Impresa no hora means you walk in and within 1 hour you're able to register your business and walk out with all the business documents. That's amazing. That's a country that is serious about business. But in Nigeria, you can't get your CAC papers in 1 week. A country as little as Portugal, as Cape Verde, another Portuguese country, former colony of Portugal, you will get your business documents, you get your business registered in 24 hours. Their own is impresa no dia, right? That is a business in a day. So you can walk in, start the process and finish it, and within 24 hours, you have all your business documents. That says we are serious about business. Nigeria is not serious about business. And so it's affecting productivity, right? We have had this converse between the both of us, Ngozi, the importance of the internet to businesses. Now that all of a sudden the price of the internet went up, it has thrown more Nigerians in the tech field into deeper poverty. Because many Nigerians who used to, manage to buy internet and do their work online are not able to actually sustain that. Because you spend 5,000 Naira to buy data. In less than 24 hours, you run out of data. It's not sustainable. How much are you making, right? So things like this actually affects our productivity as a nation, and we have to really look into it. So apart from that, the other thing is the HDI that I talked about, the Human Development Index, which is a composite measure of education, life expectancy, and one other thing like that. Now, Nigeria, there are about 200 countries or so on the Human Development Index, and Nigeria is somewhere around 150 or 180 something, I can't remember, but we're somewhere down there at the bottom of the totem pole, the Human Development Index. Yeah, it considers life expectancy, it considers education, And I'm sorry, I forgot one other thing. But the problem is this. Nigeria churns out millions of students every year from our different tertiary institutions. But the problem is that these students have mere certificates and not skills that make them professionals in their chosen fields. Right? I've said this a million times, and I'm going to say it again. The generation of our fathers went to school, got good education, and that education changed their lives. Because when my father went to school, you got out of school, you had a car waiting for you, you had a flat waiting for you at least. A job waiting. Yeah, that job is what gives access to the car and the flat waiting, right? And so they perceived that education was able to change their lives. And so they said to their children, take your education seriously. Education is everything. And so that generation said to the next generation and the next generation that education is the only way to make it. And so every single one of us started chasing education. But unfortunately, not everybody has the brain for education. And so what was birth?
For formal education.
Sex for Marx was birth.
Money.
Certain lecturers was also birth. Now, other people started joining powerful cult groups that had powerful connections in the universities to ensure that you come out with a high CGPA. CGPA is what it's called, right? And so what did we start producing? Students who went to school that came out with certificates but had zero skills. And so that means on the Human Development Index, Nigeria will continue to rank low. But countries as small countries in Africa like Botswana, like Cape Verde, like even Swaziland, like Malawi, some of these countries are way up there on the Human Development Index. And so you find out that certain companies come in here offering jobs, bearing jobs, but they can't find Nigerians who can do those jobs. Do you understand what I'm saying? There are companies, people say there are jobs, there are no jobs, but there are certain sectors that have jobs available, but we just don't have professionals.
That we have unemployable persons.
Absolutely.
Now that you have mentioned it, I don't know if you agree that Nigeria has significant youth population.
Absolutely.
Okay, so do you think that if we also begin to look the way of the youth in terms of getting them employable
yes.
To start with, and create more job opportunities and harness the potential of these young persons, that can also have a major effect on
absolutely. Now, what I'm recommending, I've said this at different meetings and different events, where important people who can, change this policy were available, but they just don't care, right? Our educational system is faulty. The reason it's faulty is that there's a discrimination, high-level discrimination going on in our educational system. You're saying that people who have BScs are better than people who have HNDs, right? So you see that there's a discrimination. There's a chip on the guy from a university graduate.
Right from the NYSC.
That's right. And so they treat the people with the HNDs like they're like second-class citizens. And that is taken into the boardroom as well, where employment decisions are made. So you're saying, a different cadre of our, societal or professional life, that people who have HNDs are not good enough, right? Now, the people who have HNDs are discriminating people from the technical schools. And the people from the technical schools are discriminating against the artisans and the mechanics. But the truth is, none of these university graduates are able to do their assignments. A lot of times they go to the mechanics on the street to help them do their assignments when they were in school. Because these guys are practical professionals who have no degrees, but have seen every problem.
Experience from the field.
Seen and solved every kind of problem in their field. But what you've acquired is theories. Theories for those of you who actually studies. Millions of them don't study, right? And so what you find is that is affecting our productivity. But what I recommend is that not everybody needs to go to the university. The university degree is important if it comes with a skill, if it acquires a skill, right? But there are trainings you can get in 6 months, and you'll get job offers from Facebook, Google, some of these top-notch tech companies. 6 months trainings
away from your university.
That's right.
Studies.
And so that means that you don't necessarily have to go to university to have a good life. All you need to do is acquire some of those things. You can actually acquire, there's some tech schools that I won't mention because I won't give them free publicity here. But there are some tech schools even in Enugu here. One is at Zik Avenue, the other one is at Chim Avenue. You can go there and get some of these tech skills and be certified from them. And you can get international jobs just acquiring these tech skills. Ask me what kind of skills. You have cybersecurity. You have data analysis. You know, a lot of tech skills that you can acquire right now. Now that you're going to live such a good life, making so much money, working for people remotely. You can live in Nigeria and work for people all over the world and earn in foreign currencies with these skills.
And Nigeria's economy will also profit.
Absolutely.
But so, I wish we have all the time in the world to do this. But before we let you go, I'd like really to ask you this. You know, you mentioned Festac in passing, and that was the largest Pan-African festival at that time. And it wasn't just oil that we benefited from at that time. That also contributed to the economy. And so I'm asking, if we keep having such events, by the way, to set the record straight, Obasanjo was the president.
Oh, was he? Oh, it wasn't Gowon. Okay, sorry.
It wasn't Gowon at the time. So do you think that such event that connects the world happening right here in Nigeria, economic events and stuff, can also help boost our economy? If you can do that in less than 1 minute.
Yes, it will. But if I lived overseas and you held that in Nigeria, I wouldn't come.
Oh, all right.
Because it's not safe.
If we had, okay.
It's not safe.
You have just said
right?
that.
So fix the country, make the country safe, and then events like that can actually draw money, you know, into Nigeria. All
right, we're ending it here. Thank you very much for coming around. Of course, if you would permit us, we'll do this again.
Absolutely.
Tony Odugwe is the Director Export Chamber of International Trade and Investment, amongst all other things as it regards the economy. Thank you for coming.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.
We will return in a bit to have the third discussion segment. Stay with us.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.